The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
You should look at the little
Yeah.
camera.
Hi, my name is Victor Tiffany. I'm with Revolt Against Plutocracy, and I'm talking today to Leah and Michelle Svensson, otherwise known as the Resistance Chicks. They were brought to my attention by journalist Caitlin Johnstone, who tweeted their YouTube video with the announcement that these two women are smarter than every liberal you know. I shared that link in that video on our Facebook page. You can see it a couple days down below with the statement that these two women are smarter than everyone who believes CNN produces news. So please welcome the Resistance Chicks.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us, Victor. We're really happy to be here.
So a couple of quick questions. First, I mean, that was just a remarkable bit of analysis and deconstruction of what was clearly a fake interview, a setup, right? I mean, she had her answers in front of her, and I'm going to provide the video, the link to your video, in my video down below. But how did you first realize that what was going on there? When did you see it live and go, "Hey, she's reading the"? How did you figure out what was going on?
You know, I was doing research because after, Trump sent his missiles flying through the air, and I had already been doing some research on Syria.
All the pieces weren't adding up. And so we were actually in the search to find out what the truth was, and we had stumbled upon this.
And actually, how I stumbled across it was there was this girl, her name is Syrian Girl. She's actually, a young adult, and she goes by the name Syrian Girl. She's on Twitter, and she kind of tweets about this stuff and gets the information out there. She was on Alex Jones show, and I went to go find her. And when I was Googling her and all of her information, and when I Googled Syrian Girl, Bana Alebed came on, and I was, wow.
You're watching it, and your head is going tilt.
And then I found her Facebook page or her Twitter account, and I started reading them. I was like, okay, this isn't a 7-year-old.
No way.
Yeah. And so when I was Googling her, there was a lot of people had put up a lot of different links, and this is actually where it crosses ideological lines, because it was through a lot of my, you could say, right-wing conservative Twitter feed that they were posting about this. They were putting up, Jake Tapper says, get your information on Syria from 7-year-old on Twitter. And then he removed that tweet.
Right.
Actually. So
how did you get that video? How did you capture that for your YouTube presentation?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to remember exactly where I found it. I think I was in the search boxes of Twitter. I was Googling Syrian Girl, and I Googled her. And on YouTube, these different videos of Bana Alebed came up. And when the interview came on with Bana Alebed and her mom sitting next to her, I watched her eyes. I'm like, that girl's reading. This is a whole staged thing. And then when I saw the next interview where she was in Turkey and she's being interviewed and she couldn't answer the question, what's your favorite food? Because she didn't understand what he was saying in English.
Save the children in Syria.
And the answer was save the children in Syria. And I was like,
and then she liked fish. Right. Once her mom fed her I like fish.
Or the interviewer. I don't even know if the lady on the side, I don't even think was her mom.
Yeah.
It was some other translator. So
we just found that video, literally a compilation of different videos. We were watching several of them on YouTube. So other people were awake to it as well.
Yeah.
Which was good.
Yeah.
I've had fun tweeting to Jake Tapper asking him if this kind of fraud, fake news, or really it was war propaganda. I mean, she's appealing to Trump and of course to American people,
Right.
and it's just, and somebody's setting this whole thing up, and it's got to be CNN, because how would they know what how do they know what the answers were going to be if they didn't know what the questions are going to be? Exactly. And CNN knew what the questions were going to be, so this had to be fake news. There was no getting around that.
And this isn't the first time that CNN has done this with video footage, and so this wasn't their first rodeo either. And you'd think they would have done it better, having failed the first time, but
it was really poorly done. And I also have been picking on Brian Stelter, right? He does he's the media critic, and he does reliable sources. And I've been hammering him, Brian, how do you consider CNN a reliable source? And why don't you cover this story? This is fake news, and it's coming straight from CNN.
Exactly.
Of course, he won't touch that. And I think if he even tried to cover that on his show, it would be his last show.
I think you'd get, I think it'd be journalistic suicide to touch some of it. And it's interesting the way we were all pushed into the narrative. I mean, everybody across the whole country, as soon as Trump bombed Syria, suddenly the whole world loved Trump. Suddenly,
well, and Hillary's coming out saying, "Oh, he's doing exactly what I would have done," and then you got John McCain super happy about it, and it's like, okay, if these crooks are happy, then that's when I start to question.
Yeah, I've been calling Trump President Hillary Trump ever since the Syrian bombing. So let me ask the whole concept of resistance. What exactly? I mean, I have a sense, but tell the audience what it is you're actually resisting.
Well, the name of it actually came kind of as a joke, and I don't know how your viewers are going to feel about this, but Alex Jones at the end of his shows, he's always like, "You are the resistance." That's my Alex Jones impersonation. But really, I felt really strongly about our resisting is resisting the deep state, resisting Agenda 21, resisting the globalist agenda. And then we didn't find out until much later that the Antifa people had kind of grabbed a hold of that slogan, resist. And so it actually kind of led more kind of progressive, leftist, all the people that are kind of across the aisle from us to our page. And then they were like, you know what? We agree with you. And so it's been really exciting for us to see that we've already been seeing this ideological line, because the deep state is the common enemy. Mm-hmm. And so joining together, so our resisting is resisting the deep state, the globalist agenda, where, pretty much they want to control everybody and kill us all.
GMOs, chemicals in the water, anything where somebody's trying to come against your God-given natural right to just live.
Yeah.
Not.
Hillary is part of the resistance, don't you know?
I know.
I heard
she
this.
Came out of the woods. She's now, in her interview the other day, she said, "I'm back with the resistance." And my whole thing is, can she not go away? Somebody else said, can America get a restraining order against Hillary Clinton? Can we, for stalking?
Yeah, for interfering with the actual resistance. I've been tweeting her directly, and you're not part of the resistance, you're part of the problem.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So let me go back to this whole notion of deep state and globalization, because we were strongly fighting the Trans-Pacific Partnership for a long time on the progressive side, and I knew there was a lot of opposition on the conservative side. And there's issues like Trans-Pacific Partnership, GMO, so-called free trade agreement, where the left and the right can work together on an issue.
Right.
But and this is where I want to pick your brain, because where the difficulty comes in is in movement building, because there are so many tripwires and so many issues where the left and the right don't agree on things. So how do we build a movement of opposition, even revolution, against this deep state, which is part of the larger establishment? How do you build something where the left and the right can actually work together and take power away from these the deep state, which in some ways is just bureaucratic inertia toward globalization, an empire and the like. How do you get over these tripwires? How do you not let these dividing issues divide us? How do you stop that or prevent that from happening?
It's really interesting because you want people to be themselves, right? You don't want people to stop. I don't want you to stop your issues that you find are important to you. And no, you don't want me to stop my issues that I find that are important to me. And I would encourage people first to recognize that there are groups that aren't ideological, that focus. I think it's better if we have like specific groups that focus on like a specific issue or a group of issues, like
where we can agree,
like the Millions Against Monsanto, right? Well, I mean, I get on there. They go through my Facebook feed, and I'm sharing things right and left, and I know that it's divided 50-50.
Yes.
And nobody has an R next to their name or a D next to their name or a P next to their name. We're all just focused on that particular issue. And when it comes to things like,
I think you almost have to leave all of these tripwires at the door.
Right.
You just have to. And Leah and I have been able to do that on a personal level. I have no problem going to a site like Caitlin Johnston, where we were reading her articles after she was brought to our attention, and I love everything that she says. And there were parts that I didn't agree with. I just chucked it. I still love her to death. I just chuck what I don't like, and it doesn't matter. And so I think that it's kind of a part of being an adult, a little bit, to just ignore the things that you don't agree on.
So you're talking, again, there's two different considerations. One is attacking an issue, like whether it's Trans-Pacific Partnership or money in politics. The left and the right tend to agree that we should have, equality in terms of money in politics. And there is a conservative organization pushing sort of a tax rebate process where everyone can use that money to donate to PACs and parties and candidates, and everyone is enfranchised in the political process, from not just from the vote perspective, but from a financial donation perspective.
Right, absolutely.
So on issues, we can work together. My question is broader and more about movements and revolutions, taking power, replacing the ruling class with another set of I don't know if I want to use grassroots organizers, but another group of people who basically need to take over the country and disempower the establishment right through to the core of the deep state. So how do you, again, if we're going to work together at that level, that systemic level of organization, how do you do you just set these issues aside and say, look, we're not going to deal with these divisive issues right now, whether it's immigration or I don't even want to list the issues. They're out there.
Hair going up on people's backs. Yeah.
So how do you set those aside in order to take on the true systemic issues?
I think that when you do attack the deep state and the monetary problems and the big banking problems, a lot of those other issues will actually kind of, in my opinion, work themselves out a little bit better. But when you look at the agreements that go with our farmers with the Monsanto corn. Well, they disenfranchised the farmers in Mexico who were growing corn. So, of course, then they come up to America
with the
to find better jobs because, our farmers put their corn out. So there's like a lot of different things where when we focus on where the corruption is, sometimes some of these other issues will fix themselves.
Yeah,
they'll balance out.
So I think the answer that you're looking for, at least from us, maybe not the one you're looking for, but the answer you're wanting us to give is, we really think, like Leah talked about, the Millions Against Monsanto. We need to be creating communities and groups that focus on these issues, like the deep state, like globalist agenda issues, where people can literally leave their R, leave their D, leave their independent, leave their libertarian, whatever label you have, leave it at the door and just show up and discuss those issues, whether these are Facebook pages, YouTube channels, websites, whatever, where we have to get large communities that can focus on specific issues that have to deal with uncovering the corruption that we see at these high levels.
But again, that's an issue, and nobody disagrees with you about that. Ralph Nader wrote an entire book listing 20-some issues that the left and the right should be able to work together on to take steps towards restoring the republic. But when it actually comes to a revolutionary movement,
Right.
where the establishment has so much power, they have all this corporate money behind them, whether it's Monsanto or IBM and the media, right? I meant to bring up when you were talking about CNN earlier, not Center, Center of Foreign Relations, Council of Foreign Relations.
Yeah, yes.
That's a hub for
Absolutely,
the deep state, and that's where, and then they spring out into the military-industrial complex. They spring out into the media. They spring out into politicians and so forth.
Oh, absolutely.
So back to my question is, in terms of actually building a revolutionary movement, it's there will be a party name, whether it's G or R or D or whatever it is. There's going to be a letter out there,
right?
And how does even someone like Bernie Sanders, how does he manage? I mean, he ran as a Democrat, even though he's been independent all of his life, and that was just, in our view, a pragmatic step. Same reason Donald Trump had to run as a Republican. The media would have ignored him if he ran as an independent. And then he's got an R after his name, or Sanders had a D after his name. And how do you? It would have been an interesting election, Sanders and Trump, because both of them are outsiders.
So absolutely.
It would have been far more interesting than what we ended up with.
But we wouldn't have had to deal with Russia and corruption on that kind of level. We would have been able to debate the actual issues versus just having all this, magician look over here, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. That is the $1 million question, isn't it? I know that Gary Johnson's libertarian, and we're particularly if we had a leaning, we're definitely more in the libertarian group. But I think that Gary Johnson's group, they try really hard. They tried really hard to be a third party. I mean, I had friends who were diehard Democrats that were like, I can't vote for Clinton. I'm going to vote for Gary Johnson. I know that
we just couldn't get behind him.
Yeah, but, what's Aleppo? Well,
my son was going to support him until he asked, "What's Aleppo?"
I think a lot of people were.
And the more he talked, the more you just said, "Oh no."
Right.
I really liked a lot of the things that Jill Stein had to say, particularly. So that is the $1 million question.
I think we all keep wanting to get behind a person and to have a leader.
Right.
Whereas, unfortunately, I think with this movement, it's going to take kind of a building of roots first before we see an actual tree pop up, which the tree would represent the leader. Because I think the problem is we put all of our eggs in one basket with a leader, and then the leader lets us down, and then it dissipates from there. And so I don't want to look at some sort of leader, like how do we get a party together or something like that, where I think for where we're at as resistance chicks, our goal right now is to awaken people. Right. And I think that for the revolution to begin, we have to start waking people up. It's already happening. Okay. It's already happening. The roots are building. We're gardeners. We're farmers. So that's the best thing. You got to plant, you got to seed, and you got to make those roots really strong. And then you can transplant it and watch the plant grow. So I don't want to try to say, how do we get a group together and then look to some sort of leader where, unfortunately, like I said, it'll crumble if we do that. We have to start by getting the information out there first. To start a revolution.
I would really encourage people, because what we saw, I don't know if people understand this, but have you ever seen what's the one where they had the little people and the giant, and they go around them?
Gulliver's
Travels, right? And they had the little tiny the Lilliputans, and they went around Gulliver with a bunch of ropes, and they took him down. Well, that's what the left and the right did to the Clinton machine. We all grabbed a rope that we didn't care where you were at. I mean, Facebook and Twitter and
that's why they're actually starting to censor Facebook, Twitter, and Google, because they are attributing it to the loss of the Clinton campaign. And so when I look at that and I see, oh my gosh, they're afraid of Facebook, they're afraid of Twitter, they're afraid of Google, they're afraid of YouTube, then it works.
Right.
And so that's why I say just starting to get the news out there, spread the word.
That censorship in Facebook isn't just starting. There was an awful lot of that during the primaries. what they would do is they would, oh, you're sharing articles too fast, and then boom, with no warning, they would block you from being able to share articles or comment on
That's
Facebook
crazy.
page. Yeah,
Wow.
and that's what they were doing.
Wow.
I do know that at first, when the Clinton team went to Mark Zuckerberg and said, "You ruined the election because Facebook," right? So Zuckerberg was like, "No, I didn't." Everybody, and then now Zuckerberg's like, "Well, maybe I did," and so now we've got all these fake news, and you can report fake news,
Right.
And what is fake news, and you can. It's, I mean, the Chicago Tribune, they have been
Censored.
have been censored as fake news now, and they're, mainstream.
So I don't want to change subjects here, but I just kind of had this thought, and because we always try to leave people with a message of hope, and I think that that's what this should be. What we're doing here, this crossing of ideological lines without any kind of leader whatsoever, it's already been done. It happened in 1776 when we signed the Declaration of Independence, when parties from all over our country joined together, and those men fought like this against ideological things. You had the men in the South, you had the men in the North, and you had Christians, you had non-Christians. Everybody joined it together, but guess what? They said to themselves, we want a free nation, and we're going to make it happen. And it wasn't until after the fact that we got a leader, George Washington. And so people can band together, they can cross ideological lines, and they can make one of the greatest nations that has ever been birthed before. So our country's already done it before.
Right.
So I want you guys to be excited that we can do this again because we already know how.
I mean, think about it. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Not to throw a monkey wrench in the works, but that was a war, right? In the immediate aftermath,
you're right, though. You're right.
In the immediate aftermath of the war, when people with different ideological perspectives were now organizing around the concept of factions, with back then, or parties, they joined different factions. They joined different interest groups. So, if in this case we're dealing with a peaceful revolution, no one is calling to arms, and if you ever did, the FBI would be knocking on your door within a day. Which is one reason to not go for arms, because it would just create a repressive police state unlike anything we've had up to this point. But and that's, we're still stuck in this dilemma, because that tree you described is going to have a letter after its name, or the politician is going to have a letter after his or her name, and it's possible that the letter will be I, independent. And then that's where that tree will grow and flourish, is to more or less throw party identification off to the side, and create a movement that's just strictly independent, that welcomes the left and the right with an explicit strategy of setting aside the very issues that will otherwise divide us, at least until the revolution is accomplished.
Well, I think we can also look at the UK for this. They created the party UKIP, for Brexit, and they pulled people from the Labour Party, and they pulled people from the Tory Party, and they pulled people from all over to create UKIP, because they all had this common enemy, the European Union. And they gathered together, they've created UKIP. Unfortunately, now that Brexit has gone through and Article 50 has been triggered, we're looking at the UKIP party, and it's kind of crumbling. And it's unfortunate, and you've got a lot of sad people. But guess what? They're kind of being redistributed back to their original parties, and they may help reform those parties and bring the things that they learned from the other members of the UKIP party, where, oh my gosh, look, they were doing this and this is right, and we need to help reform the Tory party, or we need to reform the Labour Party, or whatever, however you want to call it. And so it's possible that we may have something that's very similar to that. Nigel Farage was kind of the head of the UKIP party, and everybody could get behind him. We may come up with a Nigel Farage or someone of that nature that we can look to and get behind, just to join together for a moment while we take down the deep state. And so I think
the difference, though, between the European Union and Brexit and what we're dealing with
is we can't leave our country.
We can't vote out the deep state. We can't. And that's the reason why we couldn't have a revolution, is because there's no standing army. It was easy. You've got the redcoats. There you are. You're going to fight them. They're your enemy. They're bombing you, right? But with the deep state, you can't identify who is who.
Right.
So that's why I get so behind WikiLeaks, and I think that like with the leaks, and I think that we can win this through a war of information. And the reason the left is trying to censor on YouTube, they're trying to censor on Twitter, and they're censoring all over the internet because they realize they're losing.
Yes.
So what we and what you and what everybody who's awoke is what we've been doing is working. It's working because they're very afraid. And so what, if we keep, I would say just keep pushing the information out there, keep exposing them. And when you do, they're losing their power right and left. I mean, with the CIA coming out, it's just unbelievable. You got Comey yesterday with his, I call it a fake hearing and testimony just for, your viewing pleasure. It didn't do anything for anybody. So yeah, it's a good question. I kind of go ahead.
He was very misleading. Just so many answers that are complete contradictions.
Right.
Yeah.
In what he said, he had to be lying at some point.
At some point or throughout.
Well, yeah, because it was just such a contradiction. I mean, what the question asked, and it's been on my mind for a long time, if he's going to announce that there's an investigation of Hillary Clinton, why wouldn't he announce that there's an investigation of Donald Trump? It would only be fair that if he's truly, not trying to tilt the election, then he should have talked about both investigations.
Sure.
His answer is, well, the investigation was just getting started. This was late October, and he already had said that the investigation has been going on since July.
Right.
So how can he not provide that kind of balance at the time? Not that I wanted Hillary Clinton to win,
right?
But it's not his role to make that decision. He should have, just because that's not his role, he should have announced that there was 2 investigations underway.
Yeah,
right.
It was absolutely ridiculous. I don't think we even know what's going on. It was September, October, August. That was such an amazing time to be alive. I think for all of us to experience this, going after corruption, and I'm hoping that we'll get more and more of these opportunities to come against corruption. I would encourage everybody on the progressive side to recognize when Trump bombed Syria, and I'm going through my Twitter feed. It was everybody on the conservative side saying, Trump, what have you done? What have you done? What have you done?
Right. And
then it was tons of, the Bana Alebed and we shouldn't go into Syria, and Trump replaying his campaign promises to not engage in Syria, to not engage in more wars.
Right.
He talked about the failed Libya coup, and he talked about the failed wars in Iraq and the failed wars in Afghanistan. And so I would say at least 50, if not 60% of conservatives. And then as we began to talk to our viewers who are all over the board, but we have some diehard Trumpsters, and they really wanted to get behind Trump. And we had to say, you guys, you can only get behind something when it is morally right to get behind it.
So I do want to get back to your other question, because I feel like we're getting somewhere here. But so what can we do? Fortunately or unfortunately, however, whatever side of the aisle you're on, we're going to have 3.5 more years of Trump. Okay. And so right now, the only things that we can do is to try to change Trump until we can get to 4 years from now. Okay. And so in that, yes, we need to be focusing on 4 years from now, but I think we can also focus on right now, because one thing that we have seen is that Trump really does try to listen to the people. Unfortunately, he is surrounded by deep state globalists right now on every side. They have taken out anybody with any common sense that was around him. They did it on purpose. But he does listen to the people. And I think that it's really important that as progressives or liberals or whatever, or obviously the conservatives, we have to be telling Trump what we want to see done. And we have to be a very, very, very loud voice. And we have to stop supporting mainstream media, because I think as the people, we can cause them to crumble. And if mainstream media crumbles, because obviously their ratings are going down the toilet right now because of stations like you, because of us, all independent newscasters that are putting the truth out there. We're causing the mainstream media to crumble. And once they do, then the president of the United States will be able to really hear the voice of the people. And I think that should be our main goal for right now. And so
if everyone who watched CNN watched your video on that Syrian girl, CNN would be out of business within a week.
I think so. And
we need more of that. We need more other people.
More people. Exactly.
I want to cry out to your viewers, our viewers. We need more channels. We need more people out there.
That's part of it. And, that's one reason I wanted to do this interview. Believe me, the progressives have been all over Rachel Maddow because of her warmongering and, this business of Trump, Russia, this phrase Hillary used, Russian WikiLeaks. I didn't know there was a Russian WikiLeaks.
That was incredible. She just made that up.
She did.
Yeah.
So it is exciting, and it's a matter of, in part, people getting the word out, sharing videos and interviews like this when you see them on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, and that's what Caitlin Johnstone did. That's how I stumbled into it. I was like, holy crap! I can't believe what these two women discovered. It was amazing. It was, by the way, the best deconstruction I've seen any amateurs do of a mainstream corporate broadcast.
Well, thank you. We're very humbled by that.
That was a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate this opportunity to have this discussion, and maybe we'll do it again. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to say before we depart. Again, I'm just focusing on issues, which is there's a bill, and I can't remember the name of it, but basically they want to take the capability of a nuclear first strike out of the hands of the president and put it in the hands of Congress, because according to the Constitution, it's Congress that declares war.
Right.
If it's a retaliatory strike, that's a different issue. But if it's first strike, that should be in the hands of Congress.
Right. Yes, exactly. I don't even see why this is a question. It seems like it's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? Declaring war, we have had, when 9/11 happened, we all felt it, and we all wanted to feel American. I mean, you had everybody, you had Democrats, you had Hillary Clinton saying, hey, we want to give you war powers. We're going to give pretty much Bush, whose idea to give Bush that kind of power is absolutely insane. But we're going to just give him all kinds of power. And then you've got the patriarchy, you've got all these crazy things. And then you have all these wars and and he just can do everything. And then bombs are being dropped, and he never had to go back to Congress and to give report on what he's doing. What's going on? Why are we in Afghanistan? Why are we doing these things in all these countries? I don't think half the country honestly really knew we were in Libya. Okay? Nobody really knew what we were going on, what was happening in Somalia. And the mainstream media, they played their part. They did their job. They played their little tiny pieces that they were given to play just to kind of keep people rolling along. And so you and I would just go about our business, and they could just continue their warmongering and making, millions of dollars by killing people. So yeah, definitely.
Resistance Chicks here, we focus a lot on being a constitutional republic, right? And in that, the states should have a lot more power than what is currently in their hands. And so I agree with, I don't know what your take is on it, but I think that if it's a retaliatory strike, you know what, sometimes that has to be done like that. And so somebody has to be able to put their, finger on the trigger. But if it's a preemptive, premeditated, we're going to do this, I think absolutely that all of America, which means our representatives, should be brought in on the decision.
Yeah.
So I'll put a link to the name of the act that is before Congress. I think it's worth it to have people contact your congressman in the House. I know you talked about Trump responding to a lot of public pressure and listening to the people. So does Congress. If their phones ring off the hook and they get a lot of pressure on any bill, or the position of changing the rules, and then enough people say, hey, we don't like that, change the rules, they'll change it back. They will respond to public pressure. But it does take an awful lot of public pressure, and I'll put the name of that bill also in the video below.
Fantastic. Great. We'll look forward to reading it because we haven't heard of that yet.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining me. I appreciate this conversation. Let's do it again sometime.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Rap didn't become political revolutionaries because of Bernie Sanders. Rap originated the Burn Your Bus pledge because we're political revolutionaries. We are building a leverage movement to demand the next president of the United States is a genuine progressive. Please go to our website and sign up to join us today.